I only looked away for 1 second, and that 1 second destroyed the truth I believed about my family for 20 years. Baby, sit right here in front of me. Yes, close where I can see your eyes. I'm an old woman now, and I've lived long enough to know that secrets never stay buried. Not the real ones. And the story I'm about to tell you, it still makes my bones tremble. Even now at my age, my voice shakes when I speak about those nights. Because I truly believed my home was safe. I truly believed my family was whole. And then the nights proved me wrong. Back when this happened, I was just a young mother with a tired heart, and 1,000 dreams I never got the chance to chase. My little girl was 7, sweet, bright-eyed, with a habit of talking to her dolls as if they were her sisters. She slept in a pink bedroom with fairy stickers on the closet door, and a little lamp that glowed like a tiny moon. And my husband, Mark. Lord help me, I thought I knew that man. It began on a Wednesday night. I remember that because I was folding warm laundry, and the smell of fabric softener still takes me back to that moment. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels safe, until it isn't. Then I heard it. A soft creak. The door to our daughter's room opening. It wasn't unusual for a father to check on his little girl, so I didn't think much of it. But the next night the same creak. Same time. Same careful footsteps. Quiet, too quiet. And the third night, I felt something in my chest. A warning. A tightening. A strange, unexplainable fear that slid under my skin like cold water. Something was wrong. Something felt off. I kept telling myself, you're overthinking. He's just being a good father. But if that were true, baby, then why did he only go in when he thought I was already asleep? And why did he move like he was hiding from someone? I lay there with my eyes open, pretending to breathe like a woman deep in dreams, but every second I could hear him. His footsteps, his gentle push of her door, the long silence inside that room. No whispers, no soothing words, no fatherly humming, just stillness. Stillness can be louder than screams when you're a mother. On the fourth night I couldn't take it anymore. I sat up in bed, my pulse shaking like a trapped bird. I placed my feet on the cold wooden floor and took one silent step toward the hallway. Then suddenly, his footsteps stopped. His shadow stretched across the wall as he returned from her room. He passed me without noticing I was awake, and baby, I will never forget his face. His eyes looked hollow. His jaw was clenched like he was holding in a scream, and his hands were trembling. Not the tremble of fear. The tremble of someone carrying a secret too heavy for his own bones. I didn't sleep that night either. By morning my heart felt like it was bruised from beating so hard. I cooked breakfast with shaking hands, spilled the orange juice, burned the toast. My daughter laughed at my clumsiness, but even her laughter felt fragile. Like something inside our home was bending, cracking, about to break. That afternoon, while my husband was at work and my daughter played outside, I walked into the hardware store. I bought the cheapest little black camera they had. It looked ridiculous, a plastic square with a cheap lens, but it didn't matter. I could see what my eyes couldn't. And I needed to know. I needed to know what my husband was doing in that room every night. When I tucked my little girl into bed that evening, I kissed her forehead and whispered, "Mommy loves you more than anything." Then I slipped the tiny camera inside her ceramic dollhouse, the one that faced her bed and the door. Baby, I swear my hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped the thing. When night came, I returned to our bed and pretended to sleep. My breath slow. My eyes closed. My heart racing like a terrified animal. 12:17 a.m. There it was again. The creak. Her door opened. His shadow slipped inside. I didn't move. Not a muscle. I didn't even allow myself to swallow. When he returned to bed, he didn't touch me. Didn't say a word. He just lay there like a man made of stone. At sunrise, after he left for work, I locked myself in our room with that small cheap camera. My daughter played quietly on the carpet outside the door. And baby, I prayed. I prayed so hard I thought the heavens might crack. Please, whatever it is, let it be nothing. But when I pressed play, Lord, my soul didn't just sink. It shattered. Because what I saw wasn't the behavior of a man checking on his child. It wasn't the behavior of a father at all. It was something else. Something deeper. Something broken. Something I was never meant to witness. And baby, the truth I saw in that footage, it didn't just change my life. It ruined it. I thought I was ready to see the truth, but nothing could have prepared me for what my own eyes saw that night. Baby, sit closer. You have to understand, some things in life sneak up on you so quietly that by the time you notice, your world has already changed forever. That's what happened to me that morning, with that tiny camera in my trembling hands. I had been careful, quiet, calm, or at least I tried to be. I set the camera in her dollhouse, tucked into the corner where it could capture everything. I thought I was just spying on my husband, trying to protect my daughter, trying to catch him doing something wrong. But what I saw, oh baby, it wasn't wrong. Not in the way I feared. It was heart-wrenching. The video started exactly like before. Her door creaked open at 12:17 a.m. His shadow stretched across the room. He moved carefully, as if the floor would scream under his feet. I could feel every beat of my own heart in that moment, like it was being crushed in a vice. And then he froze. He stood at her bed for what seemed like an eternity. My stomach twisted as I watched him lean down slowly, as though approaching something sacred. His hands were shaking. He placed a hand gently on her blanket, stroking it like it was the most precious thing in the world. Then he cried. Soft at first. Quiet. Almost inaudible. But the camera caught it. The sound of his silent tears. The way his shoulders shook. My stomach dropped into my heels. I wanted to run, to scream, to stop him, but my body was paralyzed. My hands shook, clutching the edge of the bed, nails digging into my skin. And then he pulled something from his pocket. I leaned closer, squinted at the blurry footage. It was a small white envelope. Worn. Old. The kind that had been folded and unfolded too many times. His fingers trembled as he slid it under the pillow. I froze. My mind screamed, "No, no, what is he doing?" Then I saw him whisper something. Not loud, not clear, but he whispered. And baby, he didn't look angry. He didn't look guilty. He looked desperate. Desperate. I pressed pause. My hands were shaking too badly to press play again. I couldn't breathe. My daughter was laughing in the other room, unaware of the storm that was happening in the very space she had trusted most. I sank into the floor, clutching the camera to my chest. I felt like I had been punched in the heart, like every breath I took was stolen by some invisible hand. And that's when I realized, I didn't just see a secret. I saw the pain of a man who had been carrying something for decades. Something that I, as his wife, never knew existed. Baby, sometimes the people we love carry burdens we can't imagine. And sometimes those burdens touch the ones we love most. I didn't know what to do. Should I confront him? Should I take the letter? Should I burn the camera? I felt dizzy, like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, and the wind was threatening to push me over. For hours I sat there staring at that tiny screen. The memory of the envelope, the way his hand shook, the way he bent over my sleeping daughter, it burned in my brain. I didn't want to know. I didn't want to understand, but I also couldn't turn away. Finally, I gathered the courage to watch the rest of the footage. And baby, oh Lord, I wish I hadn't. Because when he left the room, the envelope wasn't just an envelope. Inside was a photograph. A photograph of a little girl I didn't recognize at first. Her eyes, they were exactly like my daughter's. The same blue. The same way she scrunched her nose when she laughed. My chest tightened. My fingers froze. My teeth clenched. I knew immediately. I knew without thinking. That little girl wasn't ours. That little girl had died years before. That little girl had been Mark's secret pain, his hidden grief. And somehow, he had been leaving her letters every night for my daughter to unknowingly keep close. I cried. I screamed. I whispered curses at God and the universe alike. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. And then I realized he wasn't sneaking into my daughter's room to harm her. He was sneaking in to keep a promise he had made years before to a little girl who could never grow up, to protect her memory, to keep her alive in the one way he could. It was a truth so shocking, so heartbreakingly pure, that my soul felt like it had been ripped in half. But baby, that was only the beginning. Because the envelope, the letters, the little photographs, they weren't just there for me to find. Someone else knew about them. Someone had been watching too. And that's when I realized the danger was far from over. I stayed up all night clutching the camera, unable to sleep, unable to eat. I didn't know if I should confront him or leave it alone. I didn't know if I should destroy the letters, or let him keep his secret. And as the sun rose streaming golden light through the blinds, I understood one terrifying truth. Some secrets don't just haunt the past. They follow you into the present, and sometimes they reach for the future. I thought the letters were harmless, until I realized someone had been watching me the whole time. Baby, you have to understand something. Secrets have a way of finding you, no matter how quietly you try to hide them. And that morning, after seeing Mark's nightly visits and the envelope under my daughter's pillow, I felt the weight of every hidden truth pressing down on me. My hands were shaking, my heart thundering, and yet I couldn't stop thinking. I couldn't stop trying to figure out what all of this meant. I sat on the edge of my bed, clutching the camera like it was a lifeline. Every creak in the house, every shadow in the corner of my eye, made my stomach drop. The truth was more terrifying than any ghost story I had ever heard as a child. And I was beginning to realize it wasn't just about Mark. It wasn't just about the letters. It was about something bigger. Something hidden in plain sight. I knew I had to act carefully. I couldn't confront him. Not yet. Not until I understood the full story. So I decided I would start investigating. I started with the letters. Every night, I'd watch the footage again frame by frame, hoping to catch something I missed. And that's when I noticed it. The handwriting. It was unmistakable. It wasn't just letters. It was messages. Notes folded and tucked away, hidden in ways only a parent or a deeply grieving person would know how to hide. They spoke of promises, memories, apologies, heartbreak. And the little girl in the photographs, she wasn't just a memory to Mark. She was a living ghost that haunted every corner of his heart. But baby, it wasn't just that. The letters were signed with a name I hadn't heard in years. A name that made my stomach twist like I had swallowed ice. It was her name. The little girl. The one who had died. My mind reeled. Why would he hide this from me? Why would he sneak into her room night after night, leaving these letters, keeping this secret so carefully? And why now? Why after all these years? I decided I needed proof. I needed to understand every piece of this puzzle before I said a word. So that evening, while Mark was working late, I crept into our daughter's room again. Not to spy. Not to interfere. I just wanted to see the letters for myself. I found them, folded carefully under her pillow. Small, neat handwriting, words of love, words of sorrow, words of regret that made my heart ache. My daughter had no idea they were there. She slept peacefully, hugging her stuffed bear, unaware that her father's grief had found its way into her life in the most secretive, haunting way. I picked up one of the letters, trembling. The words were simple, yet devastating. I promised I'd always watch over you, even if no one else remembers. You are never truly gone. Tears welled in my eyes. My husband, Mark, he wasn't sneaking in to harm our daughter. He was sneaking in to protect the memory of a child he lost, to honor a promise, to grieve in secret without scaring anyone, without letting the past destroy the present. But baby, that wasn't the end, because that night as I watched the footage again, I saw something I hadn't noticed before. A shadow in the doorway, a figure standing just outside the room, watching, waiting. Not Mark, someone else, someone who had been there, observing his grief, tracking his every move. And that's when the fear hit me like a freight train. This wasn't just a family secret. This was someone else's secret too. Someone who knew. Someone who had been watching all along. I stayed awake all night, clutching the camera to my chest, trying to make sense of it. My daughter slept, completely unaware of the storm brewing around her. My husband, he was asleep in the other room, oblivious to the fact that I had discovered the hidden observer. I didn't know if I should confront him. I didn't know if I should call someone. I didn't know who to trust. But I knew one thing. This secret, this haunting, it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I felt my chest tighten. My hands shook. I whispered to myself, God, keep my daughter safe. Please keep her safe. Because baby, even in that moment I knew the truth was bigger than us. Bigger than Mark. Bigger than the house. And whatever had been watching him, whatever had been tracking our family's life, it was still out there. And baby, I learned something that night. Sometimes the most dangerous secrets aren't the ones we keep from others. They're the ones we keep from ourselves. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I couldn't think straight. Every sound in the house made me jump. Every shadow made me flinch. And as the days passed, I began to realize that the letters, the photographs, and the hidden observer were only the beginning. Because someone didn't want this secret uncovered. And baby, I had just started scratching the surface. I thought I was alone. But something in the shadows was watching my every move. Baby, you have to listen closely now because this is where the story turns darker and my heart, oh, it still aches when I remember. After discovering those letters, the photographs, and the silent grief my husband carried every night, I felt both relief and terror. Relief that he wasn't harming our daughter, and terror because someone else was in our home. Someone who had been watching us the whole time. I had spent hours replaying the footage, analyzing every frame. Every night he entered the room, there was a flicker of movement I hadn't noticed before. Something unnatural. Just at the edge of the camera's view. I had told myself it was a shadow, a trick of the light. But deep down my gut screamed otherwise. That night, I decided I couldn't sit idle any longer. I had to know. I had to see for myself who, or what was lurking in our home. I waited until Mark had gone to work. My daughter was playing quietly in the living room, completely unaware of the storm swirling around her. I had the camera in my hands, the small envelope with the letters tucked safely in my pocket, and my nerves stretched tighter than piano wire. I crept down the hallway. The floorboards groaned softly beneath my feet, and I flinched at every tiny sound. My breath came shallow, quick as I approached her bedroom door. The door was slightly ajar, just as it had been when he came in at night. I pushed it open slowly and froze. A shadow moved. Not Mark's. Not mine. Something else. Something small, quiet, deliberate. The shape was hunched, almost as if it were waiting. I could feel my heart hammering in my chest. My hands trembled as I gripped the edge of the doorframe. "Who's there?" I whispered. My voice barely carried, but it echoed in the still room. "Nothing." I stepped closer, forcing my legs to obey despite my fear. That's when I noticed it. A pair of eyes glinting faintly in the dim light, reflecting the moonlight from the window. My stomach turned. My breath caught in my throat. It was a woman. I barely recognized her at first. She was older, thin, her hair streaked with gray, her clothes worn. And the moment our eyes met, my blood ran cold. Because I knew her. It was my husband's sister. My daughter's aunt. The one we hadn't seen in years. The one who disappeared after the tragedy that took our little girl. She had been in the house all along. Watching. Waiting. Protecting. But from whom? From what? Tears welled in my eyes. I felt both relief and dread. Relief that she wasn't a threat. And dread because I realized just how deep this family secret went. Mark had been keeping the grief alive and now, his sister was guarding it too. She stepped forward slowly, deliberately. "I didn't mean to scare you," she whispered. I had to make sure he was doing what I asked. I had to protect her memory. I shook my head. Protect whose memory? What are you talking about? Baby. The truth unfolded in pieces, jagged and painful. The little girl in the photographs, the one who died before our daughter was born, it was her. She had been Mark's daughter from a previous life. A secret he buried deep in his heart after a tragedy no one else could understand. And his sister, she had been helping him honor that memory, making sure the letters reached the right place, making sure the promises were kept. I felt my knees buckle. The weight of decades of hidden grief crashed down on me. I didn't just discover a secret. I discovered a family torn apart by pain, love, and silence. I asked her, trembling, "Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't he tell me?" Her eyes softened, but they were haunted. "We tried, but you would have stopped him. You didn't understand. We were all broken and we didn't want to risk breaking you too. We were trying to protect you and her memory. And now you've seen it all." I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake them both. But instead I sat on the floor, the camera clutched in my hands, tears streaming down my face. The air in the room felt thick, almost suffocating, as if the house itself was holding its breath. Baby. It was then I realized the full magnitude of what had been happening. My husband's nightly visits weren't about hiding anything from me in a harmful way. They were about love. Painful, unbearable love. Love for a child lost. Love for family. Love for promises that could never be broken. But there was still danger. Someone had been watching, observing, and I couldn't be sure they wouldn't stop. The observer could be anyone, a neighbor, a relative, or someone with darker intentions. That night I stayed awake on the couch, listening to every creak, every sigh, every whisper of the wind against the windows. I felt like the walls themselves were listening, waiting for me to slip, to make a mistake, to uncover the rest of the truth too soon. And baby, I realized that the only way to protect my family now wasn't to hide, it was to confront, to step into the darkness, to uncover the truth fully. Because secrets this heavy, they don't stay buried forever. And sometimes to save the ones you love, you have to face the parts of your past you wish you could forget. That night I made a promise. I would uncover everything. I would understand everything. And no matter how much it hurt, I would protect my daughter from this storm. Because baby, love sometimes means walking into the shadows. And I had no choice but to step forward. I thought I understood everything. But what I discovered next tore my heart into pieces I didn't even know existed. Baby, you need to sit down for this. You need to breathe because what I'm about to tell you, it still haunts me even now decades later. After discovering Mark's nightly visits and the presence of his sister in our home, I thought I had seen the full scope of the secret. I was wrong. I hadn't even scratched the surface. That night I made a plan. I would confront the letters, the photographs, and the stories hidden in Mark's grief. I couldn't wait any longer. My daughter's safety and my sanity depended on it. I waited until she was asleep. I lit a small lamp in her bedroom, its soft glow making the shadows stretch long across the walls. I pulled out the envelope Mark had left under her pillow that morning. The letters inside were folded neatly, each one written in careful, delicate handwriting. The words were filled with sorrow and love, with memories of a life that had ended too soon. Baby, I read them all, one by one. And as I did, the full truth revealed itself. Mark's first daughter, his little girl who had died before our daughter was born, was not just a memory he mourned privately. She was a part of our lives woven into the walls of this house, into the quiet of our nights, into the heartbeat of our family. Every letter, every photograph, every secret visit was a ritual to keep her alive, to honor her, to promise her that she would never truly be forgotten. And the worst part, the most heartbreaking part was the reason he never told me. He had promised her mother, his first wife, that he would never forget their daughter, that he would protect her memory no matter what. And breaking that promise would have destroyed him completely. I cried as I read. I felt my soul cracking under the weight of his grief, of his love, of the years he had carried this burden alone. But baby, there was more. I flipped the last letter over and found a new message I hadn't seen before. It wasn't addressed to me. It wasn't addressed to Mark. It was addressed to our daughter, my little girl. It read, "You may not understand why I am not here, but know this. You are never alone. I am always with you. Your father loves you beyond what you can see. And one day you will understand the promise he kept." My chest tightened. My hands shook. I couldn't breathe. I realized the letters weren't just for Mark's lost daughter. They were for my daughter too. A secret bridge between the past and the present, built with love and grief, hidden in plain sight. Tears rolled down my cheeks as I hugged the letters to my chest. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. I wanted to tell the world about this pain, this love, this heartbreak. But I couldn't. Not yet. Because baby, there was still someone watching. Mark's sister. The hidden observer. She had been in the house all these years, helping him, guiding him, protecting the secret. And I realized if I told her I had discovered everything, she might panic. She might leave. She might do something I couldn't undo. I had to move carefully, step by step, breathe by breath. I couldn't let anyone know I had uncovered the full truth until I understood it completely. That night, as I sat on the floor clutching the letters, I made a promise to myself. I would protect my daughter. I would protect Mark. I would protect the memory of the little girl who had come before her. I would keep the secret safe until the time was right. And I would find out who the observer truly was and why they had been watching so carefully. Baby, love is complicated. Sometimes it's painful. Sometimes it hides behind grief and silence. And sometimes it forces us to make impossible choices. By the next morning I had a plan. I would follow the observer. I would confront Mark. I would piece together every part of this family's hidden past. And I would do it quietly, carefully, without shattering the fragile peace we still had. Because baby, secrets this powerful, this emotional don't stay buried forever. And sometimes they demand to be uncovered, whether we're ready or not. That night I stayed awake in the living room, the letters laid out around me, the camera still in my hand. Every creak of the floor, every gust of wind against the window made me flinch. My heart pounded like a drum, and I realized the story of my family, the story of love, grief, and promises was only beginning. Baby, sometimes the things we hide the most are the things that define us the most. And as I looked at the letters, at the photographs, at the evidence of decades of secret grief, I understood something terrifying. I had just uncovered the beginning of a story that could change everything. And baby, I wasn't ready for what came next. I couldn't stay silent any longer. I had to know the truth straight from his lips, no matter how much it would hurt. Baby, I still remember that night like it was yesterday. My hands were trembling, my chest tight, every nerve in my body screaming at me to walk away. But I couldn't. I couldn't let another night pass without confronting Mark, without understanding the man I had married, the secrets he had carried, and the grief that had haunted him silently for years. I waited until my daughter was asleep. Her soft breathing carried through the house like a lullaby, and I couldn't help but glance at her little face, peaceful and innocent. I kissed her forehead lightly and whispered, "Mommy loves you. Always." Then I took a deep breath and found him in the living room, sitting silently, staring at the floor, as if the weight of the world rested on his shoulders. "Mark," I whispered, my voice shaking, "we need to talk." He looked up, startled. There was fear in his eyes, but also a flicker of understanding. He knew. Somehow he knew I had discovered everything. The letters. The photographs. His nightly visits. The grief he had buried so deeply. I took a step closer, clutching the letters in my hand. "Tell me everything," I said. "Tell me the truth about the little girl, about the letters, about why you were sneaking into her room every night." Mark's eyes filled with tears. He ran a hand over his face, trembling. I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't want to scare you. I couldn't stop loving her. She was my first child. And when she died, I promised I would never forget her. I promised her mother I would protect her memory. And I couldn't tell anyone. Not even you. Baby, my heart broke in that moment. I understood, truly understood, the depth of his pain. The grief he had carried alone. The love that had never faded. I could see it in every line of his face, every shake of his hands, every tear that fell. And the letters? I asked softly, almost afraid of the answer. "They were for her," he said, voice cracking. "For her memory. But some of them were for our daughter too. To make sure she knew she was loved. To make sure she knew that even though life takes things from us, love never leaves us." Tears streamed down my face as I listened. Baby, it was the most beautiful, heartbreaking, and devastating truth I had ever heard. I had suspected danger, betrayal, something sinister. But the truth was love. Painful, tragic, desperate love. Then I asked the question that had haunted me the most. "And the observer? Your sister? Why was she watching?" Mark's shoulders slumped. She has always helped me. After the tragedy, she promised to watch over me, to make sure I didn't spiral completely. She makes sure the letters reach their place, that our promises are kept. She's been my guardian in ways you can't imagine. She's part of this grief, part of this memory. I didn't want to involve her unnecessarily, but she was always here, quietly protecting all of us. I sank onto the couch, exhausted from emotion. "Baby, all of this, it's so much. Why didn't you trust me with this?" Mark reached for my hands, holding them tightly. "I was scared, baby. Scared that if I told you it would hurt you. Scared that you'd hate me. Scared that the memory of her, of the little girl, would poison the happiness we have now with our daughter." I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the man I had loved, the man who had carried unimaginable pain for decades. I saw the sacrifice, the grief, the devotion, and I understood why he had done what he did. Then I whispered, almost to myself, "Baby, love sometimes means carrying a burden no one else can see. And you've carried yours quietly for years. He nodded, tears falling freely. I just wanted to protect her. I wanted to honor her memory. And I wanted to protect you too. We sat there in silence for a long time, holding each other, letting the grief, the love, the heartbreak wash over us. Baby, it was the heaviest, most beautiful moment of my life. The weight of years of silence, pain, and secret devotion finally lifted, even if just a little. But the night wasn't over. There was one more piece, one more revelation that would test all of us. Mark reached into his pocket and pulled out the last photograph, the one of his first daughter smiling, holding a small teddy bear. She wanted me to be happy. She wanted me to love again. And she wanted our family to be safe. I felt my heart break and mend all at once. Baby, the past had been heavy, but the present, this moment, it was fragile, beautiful, and filled with truth. And then a soft sound came from the hallway. The observer. His sister appeared, tears in her eyes, and she embraced us both. "You've finally found the truth," she whispered. "It's time for it to be shared. And for healing to begin." Baby, I realized then that some secrets are not meant to destroy. Some secrets, no matter how heavy, are meant to protect, to teach, to connect us to the love we carry, even through unimaginable pain. And that night we cried together. We held each other. And I made a promise, to protect the memory, to protect my daughter, and to honor the past without letting it control our future. Baby, love sometimes comes in the form of heartbreak, grief, and silent devotion. And sometimes it demands confrontation. That night I confronted the truth. And it set us free. Some secrets destroy. Others heal. And this one changed our lives forever. Baby, sit close, because this is the part where the storm finally clears, where the tears begin to dry, and where a family shattered by grief begins to breathe again. After all the nights of fear, the hidden letters, the secret observer, and the heartbreak, we finally found the truth. That morning, after the confrontation with Mark and his sister, the house felt different. Lighter somehow. The shadows that had lurked in corners, the fear that had gripped me at every creak and whisper, were still there, but they felt softer. Less threatening. More like reminders that love sometimes hides in the darkest corners before it finds the light. I sat on the couch holding my daughter on my lap. Her small arms wrapped around me, trusting, innocent, unaware of the secrets that had passed through her room each night. I kissed the top of her head and whispered, "Mommy loves you more than anything in this world." And baby, in that moment I felt the weight of everything we had survived. Mark joined us, his hands trembling slightly, his eyes wet with tears, and he knelt in front of us. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I didn't want to hurt anyone. I just wanted to honor her memory. Now, I want us to heal together." His sister stood nearby, quietly, a gentle presence that had carried so much over the years. She nodded to me, her eyes full of understanding. "You've done the hardest part," she said softly. "You found the truth. Now you can help it heal." Baby, it was surreal. The grief that had hung over our family like a dark cloud for decades was finally being acknowledged, finally being shared. And in that acknowledgement we found a kind of freedom. Not complete freedom, no, grief never truly leaves, but the first taste of it. We spent that day talking, really talking. Not just about the letters, not just about the past, but about how we could move forward. How we could honor the memory of the child we had lost, while still embracing the child who was here, breathing, laughing, alive. How we could hold both grief and joy in the same heart without letting either destroy us. And baby, I realized something important. Secrets are powerful. They can protect or they can destroy. But when shared with love and care, they can heal. They can bring understanding where there was fear. They can teach lessons no one else could ever teach. That evening, I set up a small ritual for our daughter. I didn't tell her everything, she was too young, but I showed her the letters. We talked about love, loss, and memory. About how sometimes people carry things in their hearts that they cannot explain, but that doesn't mean they don't care. About how grief can live in quiet spaces, and love can grow from it. Baby, she hugged the letters to her chest, and I saw the light in her eyes, the same light I had always loved. And in that moment I knew we would be okay. That our family could survive secrets, grief, and sorrow. That love, even when it hides behind tears and heartbreak, always finds a way. Over the next few weeks, Mark and I began to rebuild our trust, our closeness, our family life. We shared more openly, cried more openly, and laughed more freely than we had in years. His sister remained a quiet guardian, a steady presence in our lives, guiding without controlling, loving without judgment. And baby, I want you to remember something. Life is complicated. Love is complicated. Families carry secrets, and sometimes those secrets weigh heavy. But facing them, confronting the truth, that's how we heal. That's how we protect those we love. That's how we find light in the darkest nights. I still think about those nights, the hidden letters, the photograph of the little girl, and the shadow that watched over us. And I don't regret discovering the truth. No, because in that truth I found understanding, compassion, and the realization that love, even when hidden in grief, is the strongest force in the world. So baby, if you take anything from my story, take this. Never ignore the quiet shadows. Never dismiss the tears you cannot see. And never forget that the people you love may be carrying burdens invisible to your eyes. Approach them with patience. Approach them with love. And sometimes, you will uncover a truth so powerful it will change everything. That day our house felt like home again. Not because the past was gone, it wasn't, but because we had faced it together. Because the letters had been acknowledged, the grief had been shared, and the promises had been honored. And baby, I learned the most important lesson of all. Love isn't always loud. Sometimes it whispers in the quiet, waits in the shadows, and hides behind tears. But when we finally see it, truly see it, it can heal the deepest wounds and bind a family together forever. We still keep the letters. We still remember the little girl we lost. But now her memory isn't a shadow that haunts us. It's a light that guides us. And every night when I see my daughter sleeping peacefully, I know that love, even through grief, always wins. And baby, that is the truth I wanted to share with you tonight. A truth about love, about family, and about the power of facing what frightens us the most.